Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
All right.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Perfect person to have during Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes, Shanti Das. You might know her from Silence to Shame.
Celebrating their 5th year anniversary, by the way.
That's right, and congratulations for everything.
Thank you so much. How y'all doing?
We're doing
I just can't
great.
believe I'm like here with y'all.
Word,
like,
it feels
it's a
good,
big
right?
Deal. I ain't gonna lie. When I landed in New York, it was like being in a movie.
Really?
Not seeing a lot of people. It was just weird. It was strange.
It's a little
but
weird.
I'm just grateful, like, that we're finally turning the curve a little bit.
That was the first time you got on a plane in
I
a
have
year,
not
right?
flown since March of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know Atlanta's been open.
Yeah.
Open. But I've been
I've
closed.
been there a couple times. Yeah, it's open.
Did you have any anxiety on the plane, like slight panic
It's
attack?
funny. I posted because I was nervous just boarding. I was nervous sitting at the gate. I sat like across from my gate because it was so crowded, and I had all my wipes and my gloves and my mask and my shield. And once I got on the plane though, and I just prayed about it, and I did some breathing exercises, I allowed myself to calm down. And being up in the air was like riding a bike. I was like, okay. I'm back. I'm okay. But I did have a lot of anxiety going
How do you
into
do
it,
breathing
'cause
exercises with that damn mask on? That mask be
It-
killing me. I tried to wear two. Remember when they
Yeah.
say you got to wear 2 masks? I can't breathe.
Yeah, it's funny. I was I went out with some friends the other day. One of my friends turned 50, and we were dancing. I was like, I gotta take this damn mask off. Like, I could not breathe. I was like, I'm about to pass out at bruh's birthday party. But yeah, it was crazy.
You know, I've heard your name so much over the past year. I mean, I always hear your name, but literally over the past year, because I feel like none of us will be the same after this pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's like so many people saw themselves for the first time, especially in the industry, and they didn't like what they see, so they started having so many questions about their mental health and mental illness. So it was always, I need to connect with Silence to Shame and Shanti Das.
Aw.
Always. Did you notice that too?
I did, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but this movement started from such a place of pain, like with me contemplating taking my own life. And we talked about this, and I appreciate y'all. This is my 4th time on the Breakfast Club. Like, I feel like this is the breakfast of champions for me. Like, I'm it's such a big deal, but it's so humbling though just to know that there's a change, and it's a culture that's shifting in our music business. And so many people come to me, Charlamagne, and they'll text me anonymously, and colleagues and executives about their anxiety or them being afraid to open up. And they're still not at a place where they want to share publicly. But the fact that they're telling me, it's like a really big deal. And I don't want anything in return. I just want people to be healthy, and I want to save lives. And I don't want us to have to mourn the suicide of somebody else or mourn, the loss of an overdose of another one of our, team members on the music side. And so that's why this work is so important to me. And it just feels good.
Yeah, I heard your name yesterday. A mutual friend of ours in the industry, they were telling me that, they were asking how can we get help. We always reach out and say that we need help for people, but how can the family members of people dealing with mental illness get assistance?
Yeah, so it's funny you asked that. We actually have another family member that's living with bipolar disorder and schizoaffective disorder. And I know when I first went through that with my family, it was probably like 2008, 2009. And I was, working at Motown at the height of the business and didn't know as much about it. And it was my sister, my late sister, who was like, you really need to take a class. And so NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and shout out to NAMI because they now have a Black CEO, Mr. Dan Gillison, who you actually met at Taraji's dinner.
Yeah.
He said to tell you hello. But they have this great program called Family to Family, and it's for anybody. And it's maybe like a 12-week class or a 10-week class that kind of takes you through learning about how to care for your loved ones. And I didn't even know those type of resources existed. But I do encourage family members, because if your family member has a psychotic break or an episode or has to be put in a mental health hospital, it is so traumatic on the family. And you have to learn how to deal with it. And you have to learn how to properly be there for your loved one and not to be judgmental. So I really encourage people, because mental health is being normalized now, right? Obviously, you're one of the advocates that normalizes it every day on social media and using your platform here. But it's still a lot we don't know about it. And so dealing with anxiety or, depression is one thing. But when you have a severe mental illness, nobody really know what to do with that.
That's right.
It's a whole different ball game.
That's right.
And I mentioned that last night. I did some on Clubhouse with the designer Kenneth Cole. and James Andrews from Authenticated. And I was like, I want us to also have more conversations about severe mental illness. And shout out to New York, because I saw there was like a law passed or something where the cops aren't being called now if there's a mental health issue. There's actually a unit, I think, to deal with that. And that's a really big deal, because even police officers are not trained properly to know how to deal with people who are suffering from a psychotic break or serious mental illness. So we got to do more work in that area as well. But going back to the families, like, get educated, make it a part of the conversation. You got to deal with the elephant in the room. If you know your daughter or your husband, somebody sitting there talking to themselves at dinner, they need help, but you also got to get help so you can understand how to like navigate this process, because it can be debilitating on the families.
I was going to ask you, when sometimes there is a call and there's a problem with somebody with mental health, and let's say somebody with mental health does something, let's say hurt somebody else or kill somebody, if we go to that far, that distance, what should happen? Because if you think about it, maybe they weren't on their meds. And if they weren't on their meds, maybe they weren't in their right mind. Should they go to jail for life for mental health, or should they get help and then be able to come back out? Like, what do you think should happen in a case like that?
Well, I don't think they should go to jail for it, because I don't think, we should criminalize, right, somebody dealing with mental health issues. And it's funny, suicide in some cultures, not necessarily in Western culture, but it is a criminal act. That's why when people say, oh, such and such committed suicide, I don't say that anymore. I don't say that my dad committed suicide. I say he completed suicide, because it denotes a criminal act. So what I think should happen is we need more systems in place, especially in these jails, that are all privatized, which that's a whole different subject and scenario. But we need to be able to rehabilitate people from a place of wellness. And so we need more institutions. And you know how like you have older people who live in senior living facilities? I wish we had like some type of facilities that would really help people, right? Because we have short-term care where you might go in if you have a psychotic break, and they'll keep you for 7 to 10 days in a hospital or facility. But then it's like after that, you have to go back and live at home, or you may have to go live at a hotel or find somewhere like that. So I think we need more like wellness centers where it's like long-term care. Because even when you look at it like rehab facilities won't really touch patients who are dealing with severe mental illness, because you got to get clean first, as they say. Then you can deal with the mental health issue. So we don't have enough resources and facilities from a long-term perspective to be able to properly rehabilitate people that are dealing with it. Because I don't think, we need the hospitals or, the mental health institutions like they used to say that were, run by state governments. Because I don't think it was a lot that was happening from a wellness perspective that really helped people kind of assimilate back into society. They just kept you on meds all the time.
That's right.
And so it's just so much work that needs to be done. That's why we need so much money and resources. And the other thing too is you're starting your alliance. We need to come together, pool our resources, and join forces, especially in communities of color. Let's build out these programs. Let's go, a lot of businesses are not in the same place that they were in from the pandemic. Let's go buy some hotels and turn those into long-term care facilities for someone that might be 30 years old that has a severe mental illness, but we hire the doctors that can treat them there and have these activities from a wellness perspective. That's what I think we need. I want to build Silence and Shame wellness.
I got a couple schools and hotels, so we can.
But you know what I'm saying? Think about that. We don't have enough places, especially in our communities, to be able to care for our loved ones. And I know several families that have been affected, because you asked about, if someone that has a mental illness kills somebody, right? Oftentimes, we find that statistics show that people with severe mental illnesses aren't necessarily the ones going out doing the crimes, right? And then you see these mass murders, and the first thing they want to say from a press perspective is, oh, it was mental health. And so, yeah, they may have issues, but I don't want to just blame that on mental illness. What I have learned through my own experience is that people who have severe mental illness, sometimes they will lash out to those closest to them.
That's right.
Not necessarily strangers, right? And of course, they aren't in their right frame of mind, so they do need the medication, but they also need talk therapy, psychotherapy. It's just so much more to it. And then especially Black folks, it's a lot of pent-up trauma that we have not dealt with even as a culture. And then you talk about the last year and how we see Black and brown babies getting shot right in front of us, men and women now. It's a lot that we have to process. And so if they aren't taking mental health seriously now, then I hope they are now, because we are still hurting as a culture and as a people. And even with the pandemic, y'all, so many people passed away. We have to watch their funerals on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or on a Facebook Live. And traditionally in African American culture, that's like a ritual for us, right? It's a sacred space and a safe place for us to be able to deal with our emotions of our loved ones passing away. And we didn't even have that. So I've seen Black men who've lost parents and grandparents and people in their families, they still have that pent up. They're not necessarily in therapy. They're not dealing with it. So that grief is taking a toll on them. So even more reason why we as a people need more resources in our community and the society at large. Like, we're just, we're dealing with it. It's kind of cool now. You're seeing mental health being talked about everywhere rather, but where are we really taking it? What are those next steps? Those buildings and those wellness centers that we really need to put in the communities and making sure that we have better access to mental health care services as people of color.
That's what made me.
One other thing I just want to add to it. I have a friend of mine that says one of the most difficult things are committing somebody when they feel like there's something off. And I was going to ask you, like, how hard is that, and what can somebody do? Because your family's the closest, and if your family says, "Hey, this person, this man or woman needs to get help," they're saying it's so difficult to get somebody committed into a hospital. Why is that?
Because you got to do the 5150.
It is very different, and you might be able to speak more to this, but oftentimes, again, when they're not in their right frame of mind, or if they're not on medications, of course, they're not going to want to go somewhere against their will, because in their mind, they don't think anything is wrong with them. The government is following them, or different things are happening, or that's just what it is in their minds, and that's probably due to the chemical imbalance, right? And sometimes, like I know from a personal perspective, someone that I knew ended up using, I think it was called K12, that synthetic weed.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you already have a chemical imbalance, that's going to have an adverse effect. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do know enough about when you introduce these foreign substances into your brain and you already have different things going on, it's going to make for a perfect storm. And so it's really difficult being able to commit someone that doesn't want to. But, there are different things. Different states have different laws where you can do involuntary commitment, and get the judges, to pay and get judges to do, I guess, whatever they need to allow the family to have the person committed. But it is very difficult. And I think some of those laws need to change, too, to make it easier. And then just from an emotional perspective, you know what it is, having to call the police or, on your son or daughter or mother, or like, it takes such a huge toll on the family.
Yeah, I did that. I had a friend who committed suicide last year, and when we called to get the wellness check done, they told us that they couldn't do any checks because the person hadn't hurt anyone or hurt themselves. Which is like, that's so what crazy. Do you do then? And then she ended up committing suicide. I was like, what do you do then?
Someone close is telling them this person needs to be checked on, and they're like, well, wait till they hurt themselves or hurt somebody. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, it does sound crazy, and it puts us in a very tough position. And I'm sure that family member is now blaming themselves, but they tried to do everything that they could do. So it's just a lot that still needs to happen. I'm glad people are talking about it, and you see people on IG Live and all the press that mental health is getting now. But again, we got to break it down and really look at it from a family perspective and really feel like, what can we do to really have some, rules in place and some facilities in place from a long-term care perspective? Because we don't even know what the after effects are going to be from this pandemic.
Oh, none of us are the same. None of us are the same.
We are forever changed.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of people suffering.
You what would you say to artists who are struggling with being open about their struggles?
What I would say to music artists, and we've been doing a lot of work, with Silence to Shame and
Sony.
And the music
so you got the
community.
Partnership with Sony.
Yeah. So for artists, first and foremost, it's been difficult not being able to tour live. I've talked to a lot of artists who are like isolated. Some of them are just now starting to get back out. I would say lean into your creativity, because music is definitely healing. Stay off of social media so much, because sometimes scrolling through that timeline and seeing, what people who might have, a lot of money are doing, and you're comparing yourself to an artist that's been out in this season, like, stop comparing yourself to everybody else and incorporate wellness into your daily regimen. And it's okay to cry. And if you're having a tough time, and then obviously therapy, therapy goes a long way, excuse me, if you can find the right therapist. And I do know sometimes it's tough because from a cultural perspective, you want somebody that kind of can relate to you. And oftentimes artists may want someone that looks like them, and it may be a little bit tougher because, what is it? I think like less than 5% of all clinicians are clinicians
right.
of color. But just try to lean into it as much as you can. And the other thing I'll say is don't use recreational drugs or alcohol as a coping mechanism. Now, I can't tell you what to do in your downtime. You know, you want to smoke one, smoke one with your boys, but don't do it because something is wrong. If you're having a good day and you just want to hang out and smoke a J or whatever, but understand what's going on with your body. I mean, also take good care of your physical health too, because mental and physical go hand in hand. And a lot of people don't realize that. I was just physically sick like a month ago. I thought I had COVID. Thank God it wasn't, but I had another severe infection, and then it started playing with my mental psyche. And I'm proud to say I'm back in therapy now. I'm like 5-6 sessions in, and
Dope.
I had stopped going for a while, but I felt myself kind of teetering, and I couldn't really find that joy that I needed. So artists need to lean into wellness from a holistic perspective and incorporate it on a daily basis. And you had mentioned Sony. Shout out to John Platt and Sony Music Publishing. They
Big
made
John.
Yes, Big John. He's been my friend for many, many years now. They made us a part of their social justice fund. And so we're creating what's called the soundtrack of mental health. Now, you did a panel with me like 2 years ago because I've been using that brand. And essentially, we're going to do 60-minute training. So anybody that works in the music industry can get these trainings for free. We'll have trainings around understanding mental health, substance abuse, self-care, stress management, suicide prevention training. And so, will it save everybody's life? We don't know, but hopefully it will start to save some lives. And you don't know what you don't know, right? So if we can educate you and at least inform your family around how to identify mental illness, how to identify the signs, how to get treatment, and provide them with the resources. And, shout out to Music Cares. They do a lot in terms of substance abuse, and they've really added mental health into the fold now. And a lot of artists, especially artists of color, didn't even know those resources existed for Music Cares. So I want to make sure we're pushing people there as well. But we're trying to do this work, but we need to raise more money because we got to hire facilitators and stuff. So that's why, today is a big deal for us with National Silence and Shame Day as we continue to raise funds around music and mental health.
And y'all have your virtual gala.
We do. And
What is that? What is the virtual gala going to be?
So somebody I might be sitting next to, I think, is getting honored too.
Thank you. I really do.
Somebody in that chair over there?
No, I do appreciate the honor. Like, that means a lot because I never set out to be a mental health advocate. I was just telling my story.
And you don't know how much you help me now. Like, I check your page every day to see what you've posted or who you've posted from a mental health perspective. It's so encouraging. But one of my colleagues, Hillary Dunson, was like, y'all need to do a gala. And, we're 5 years in as an organization. And I was like, well, it's COVID. How are we going to do a gala? And so she's like, just do it virtually. And so I got on my phone and started texting people. And I was like, I really put a lot of thought into who I wanted to honor. So, of course, you were one of the first people.
Thank you.
Because of how you use your platform. And so you are getting the Silence and Shame Brave Award for being brave, for opening up every day. And you are so vulnerable and transparent now on social media, and you don't know how much that's helping people. So I thank you for that. We're also honoring Michelle Williams. She's done a lot in terms of using her platform and talking about her depression, even from when she was 12 years old. And so I honor her. I was just talking to her the other day, and she was just saying how, people thought that it all came about, when she was in Destiny's Child. And she was like, no, I've dealt with this since I was much younger. So her being vulnerable to even share that totally makes her a great candidate to be honored. We're honoring Spirit.
I love Spirit.
She is amazing. She's an African-American female clinician in the Atlanta area, but does a lot of national work. And she talks a lot about trauma in the Black community and boundaries and that sort of thing. So we're honoring her. And then last but not least, D-Nice. Because he shines such a light on our community and really helped our mental health. Because there were nights where I was like in the crib alone, and it's almost like I felt the walls closing in on me. But then D-Nice would be live, and he was shouting everybody out like you were in the club, and and getting up and moving and dancing. I mean, that's a part of wellness in and of itself. Y'all might see me on my IG dancing, to some old school song, but I'm feeding into my wellness. I'm feeding into my mental health. So it's a beautiful thing. And then we have appearances from our Atlanta mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, Reverend Senator Dr. Raphael G. Warnock. Common gave this really great opening for the gala, a very personal and passionate story. And gosh, Carrie Hilson. We have performances from Lecrae and from Anthony Hamilton, and it's just going to be fantastic.
Where can they see it?
So you can go to our website, www.silenceashamed.com, and register, this morning, or you can catch it on our YouTube page. It's going to be live streamed on our YouTube page at Silence to Shame TV, or go to Instagram at Silence to Shame and check it out. And we're probably going to have it on Facebook. And we just got connected through, I want to shout out the Mental Health Coalition. Kenneth Cole is also a part of the gala. And he has this fantastic coalition where he put over 30 organizations that are already doing the work. And so they're doing so much on their part to support us. And so I want to make sure that, you guys utilize Mental Health Coalition as a resource as well. Yeah,
I'm part of that with my mental wealth alliance. I just did something with Kenneth, me and Dr. Alfie.
Oh yeah, for the 1-to-1.
Yep, the 1-to-1.
Yep. And I'm actually doing it today.
I'm doing
Michelle
it today too.
Now.
Yeah, I'm doing it tonight, this afternoon, actually.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. And then they connected us with the folks over at Facebook who now have an emotional health platform through Facebook. And so it's going to be on our Facebook page, too. And that's on at Silence, TH Shame as well, through Facebook.
You know what's so interesting? D Nice was helping so many of us, but he was going through it himself. We had him up here last week. And he was like, he was playing music as an outlet for himself.
Yes. Because he said he was sitting in his kitchen and he was just so lonely. I was actually on the first night that he started. It was like, oh my God, D Nice is the one. And we were just like saying, play this, play that. And it just started as like 200 of his friends kind of shooting the shit and having a conversation. But to your point, he was in a place where he realized how much he probably was missing touring live and being out at shows and stuff. So it was a big deal. But I just wanted to do something different, too, because I'm still a music girl at heart. So I was like, let me make the BET Awards for mental health and do something like that. So maybe next year BET will, carry a Brilliant Mind Gala.
Why not? Let's speak that into existence. Why not?
That's right.
I know you got to go because you got a live hit. So my last question: how has your work in the mental health space helped you along your journey? Because you've gone through a lot, losing your sister, things like that.
That's a great question. I was introduced to this notion called the wounded healer from my pastor, Dr. Warnock, and I still feel like I'm going through it. That's why I am back in therapy. I am also probably getting ready to get back on my antidepressants because even though things are going good, the foundation is starting to roll. Now, I still have mornings where I struggle and I just can't get happy again. And I'm not embarrassed to take medication if I need it. And so doing this work has helped me by being able to pour back into people. But I also have to be careful because I'm re-traumatizing myself kind of every time I share the story about wanting to take my own life. So I have to, really incorporate breaks and walks into my day. Like once I can get through today in the gala, I'm taking 2 days off, and the rest of the weekend I'm going to go see my mother because I haven't been able to hug her since the pandemic started. But I have to be really intentional about the breaks that I take because this is heavy work. And people see the posts, but they don't know what goes on like behind the scenes. And like I mentioned, it's an honor to be able to help so many people and strangers, but I also have to protect my peace. Because because sometimes I internalize everybody else's problems and everybody else's trauma. So I have to work twice as hard on my own mental health. But it's okay. I feel like I was built for this. Like, I'm the EVP of my own, body, if you will. I'm the executive vice president of Shanti Das. So I have to take care of myself, right?
That's right.
So
I got one question, but I guess we can ask later. I know she got to go.
Well, give them the website, Shanti.
What's the last question?
My last question is just, you said you could take yourself off medicine. When do you know when it's okay to stop taking medicine?
That's a great question, and I will.
People don't know when.
I would say, because I don't want to give any medical advice like that, but you got to talk to your doctor and talk to your therapist and see how they feel like you're doing and how you're progressing. And then when you do it, you're not supposed to just stop cold turkey taking it. You have to wean yourself off of it. That's the mistake I made when I first got on antidepressants. I thought I was better after like 4 or 5 months, and I just stopped. But then I it brought me back down to a low. So you need to be able to have a real plan and strategy from your doctor, your PCP, as well as your psychiatrist to wean yourself off of it. Because the worst thing you can do is just stop taking it cold turkey.
All right. Well,
Give them the website, Shanti, so they can donate to Silence the Shame.
Yes, so the website is www.silencetheshame.com, and also you can text the word silence, SILENCE, to 707070. Again, text the word silence to 707070. Make sure y'all tune in tonight for the gala. It's going to be turned. We have a lot of great people, but more importantly, we're going to go out here and silence the shame and save some lives.
That's right.
All right. Well, Ashanti died, so appreciate you again.
I love y'all.
We
Love you
back.
more.
And thank you, Envy, for doing the dance to donate. If
No
you want to
problem.
do it again in the month
Anytime
of May,
you need me, I'm there.
we can
You know
jump
that.
on.
Anytime.
We still
I'm
raising
there.
money. And brother Charlamagne, we're going to do some more stuff together.
Let's do
Let's
it.
take this thing around the world.
I'm with it. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do
Ashanti
it.
dies. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.